Recently, Shell partnered with popular science educators to showcase the engineering of their massive deep water oil platforms. But at the gas pump, the pitch changes. In several countries, Shell offers customers the option to make their fuel climate neutral by paying just 2 or 3 extra cents per liter. To accept that offer, you have to accept a specific kind of math, that a few pennies can neutralize the emissions from the entire life cycle of a liter of fuel, from the energy used to pull it out of the earth, to the refining process, to the moment it's burned in your engine. This proposition is framed using a specific set of industry terms: climate neutral, net zero, and nature-based solutions. These labels suggest a direct link between a consumer's small contribution and a global environmental fix. These marketing campaigns create a public-facing image of environmental responsibility. However, the gap between these claims and the company's operational history suggests that this system may serve more as a protective layer for the brand than as a tool for meaningful climate action. This scale shows the core RED+ logic. Saving a forest turns its held CO2 into a credit that cancels out industrial emissions. But trees are temporary storage. If a forest catches fire, that CO2 is released immediately, while industrial emissions remain for millennia. To understand how these credits are actually calculated, we can look at the Cordillera Azul project in Peru. Because the credits are based on preventing deforestation, the project's value depends on proving that the forest was in imminent danger. In Peru, the project managers based their math on a hypothetical future. They created a deforestation model based on the predicted activities of a large population of migrants who, according to local reports, never actually arrived. This theoretical threat ignored the geographic reality. The area had been a government-protected national park since 2001. Furthermore, indigenous communities had already been living there and protecting the land for generations, yet they were largely excluded from the planning of the carbon project. A similar pattern appeared in Indonesia's Katingan project. Operators claimed the forest was at risk of being turned into pulpwood plantations. However, pulpwood cannot grow in that specific peat swamp soil without massive drainage projects that would be too expensive to build. The area was also already under a government-protected status that prohibited such plantations. In both cases, the foundation of the offset is built on speculative math. By calculating credits against imaginary threats, the market can generate millions of carbon credits that don't represent a single ton of new, real-world carbon reduction. These credits aren't usually sold directly to companies like Shell. Instead, they move through a network of middlemen and investment funds. These intermediaries often purchase credits from local projects at very low prices, sometimes as little as $1 per credit. This flowchart shows the path of a single credit. By the time it reaches a final corporate buyer, that $1 credit can be sold for $17. The carbon credit effectively becomes a financial asset, traded for profit before it ever reaches a gas pump. The entire system is overseen by certification bodies like Verra. Their role is to act as an independent auditor, verifying that every credit represents a real, permanent reduction in CO2. However, when external researchers took a closer look at the data, the results were devastating. One major study found that 90% of the rainforest carbon credits certified by Verra likely did not represent real emission reductions. The result is a supply chain that consistently produces financial returns for intermediaries and green marketing for corporations, while the actual environmental goals and the rights of indigenous people are often left as an afterthought. The idea of the personal carbon footprint is now a standard part of how we talk about climate change. But that concept was originally popularized by the oil company BP in an effort to shift the public focus toward individual lifestyle choices. In 2021, while heavily promoting its climate-neutral fuel, Shell allocated just 1.5% of its budget to renewable energy. Simultaneously, the company spent roughly $12 billion a year exploring and producing more oil and gas. This commitment to fossil fuel infrastructure is part of a long-standing history. Industry executives have known about the impact of greenhouse gases on the climate since the late 1950s, yet they have continued to build and expand this global network. Protecting the world's forests is essential and requires massive direct funding from industrialized nations. But when that protection is tied to the carbon offset market, it often becomes a tool for corporations to claim progress while their core carbon-intensive business remains unchanged.